to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel. This morning, I guess it should say, since it's 12:06 a.m. when we're starting. This harkens back to the olden days, Jay, when we used to always start after midnight.
Yeah, I don't miss doing this at midnight, Mike. I'm honestly, I know you can function, and I function pretty good on little sleep. I normally go to bed around 11:30, but yeah, we had some technical snafus when you were recording the
So
interview
just
episodes,
to
and then
yeah,
yesterday we were a day late because I had some dental work and I was toast. My mouth was hurting. I was toast after class, so I just said, "Mike, I got to go to bed." And I went to bed last night, and then we didn't record today until now because Mike had his interviews scheduled that we always do. So yeah, so we're in it. We've been a litany of things going on in the Hoopheads
this
pod
is
land.
so this is my third podcast of the night. So I did my two interviews and was all ready to go at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So keep in mind that is now more than 3.5 hours ago, and all set up to get started. And I'm logged on to our recording software here on Riverside and hit the record button. I get a strange message saying somebody is already recording in your account. If you'd like to upgrade your account, please click here. I'm like, I don't really want to upgrade my account and nobody else can be recording. So I told my guest, I'm like, well, let me just refresh my browser and see what happens. And I pressed refresh, and then all of a sudden the light bulb went over my head that Cal, who for those of you who listen to the podcast know that he's my son, he has his own podcast called The Scenic Route, where he interviews people who are kind of in the nature slash adventure space. And little known to me, he was recording a podcast tonight. So I had to text him and be like, dude, when are you going to be done? And why are you recording a podcast on the night when we're recording? So we had to wait like 25 minutes to get it started. So hence Jason and I are starting here at after midnight. So
And
all that being
I have
said,
told Mike we have 22 more minutes. With 12:30 this is going to be a short Hoopheads podcast episode, which for
okay,
us
so we have
brevity is not normally our strong suit. So we'll see how
all
this
right,
goes.
we have three things we're going to talk about. So we have two news items, and then we have one very quick gimmick that Jason came up with that is a good gimmick and will allow us to wallow in our sorrows as Cleveland Browns fans. But let's start with the news items. Which one do you want to tackle first, Jay?
Let's just do Kawhi, and
All
here's
right.
why I want to do Kawhi first, Mike. Um, I haven't really dug to. I mean, I listened to part of the low post where he had the lawyer guy on. Did you listen to that episode?
I did, yes.
So the bottom line is this. I guess the question is, do we think that this was some that Steve Ballmer really got conned, or do you like your personal opinion? Did he get conned, or was this an elaborate scheme to undermine the salary cap, Mike? Your opinion based on everything you've heard, everything you've read, what your assumptions are. Do you think this was a con, or do you think this was undermining the salary cap?
I think it was undermining the salary cap. I just feel like the big problem, and this is the big problem that everybody who's talked about it or everybody who has written about it, the problem lies in the fact that he was paid $28 million and did nothing. And that's where the problem lies. And it doesn't seem that he was ever expected to do anything. It doesn't seem like all of a sudden the company is going under and therefore whatever he was supposed to do didn't happen. It just looks like, from everything that I've read and seen, that there was never any expectation that Kawhi Leonard was going to do anything. And if he was never going to do anything, then what's the benefit to the company that would require them to pay $28 million to Kawhi Leonard? It seems very questionable. And then you can get into the whole thing with Uncle Dennis and that whole story of him wanting to ask the Spurs and the Raptors and any other teams that in the past have wanted to bring Kawhi Leonard into their franchise, that looking for, let's just call them in quotes, extra benefits. It just seems like to me it all adds up to the fact that I don't really know what the plausible explanation could be for why a random company would be giving Kawhi Leonard $28 million for doing nothing. It doesn't seem like good business. Now,
Seems
granted,
hinky. Seems
business
hinky, Mike. Seems a little hinky.
it does. Well, and granted, the company is out of business and bankrupt, so maybe they just aren't good business people. But you have to be a really bad business person to pay someone $28 million to do nothing. And it just, I don't know.
Call me up.
There's, yeah, call me up. I'm happy to do that. I might even do something for you if you're going to pay me $28 million. But I just don't see how it does. There's nothing else that makes sense that's really plausible in my mind, other than somehow the Clippers arranging for this to take place. Does that mean it was Ballmer? Does that mean it was Lawrence Frank? Does that mean it was someone else in the front office? Does that mean it was a rogue employee? What does that mean? I don't really know, but it
Will we
seems
know?
highly
I guess
unlikely.
my question: Are we gonna? Are they gonna get to the bottom of this, or is it not? Is it gonna be like, you know,
Here's
Tom
what I'll
Brady's
say.
cell phone getting destroyed during Deflategate? Are we just never gonna get the true 100% story?
I think people are dumber than we think, in terms of, I've heard a lot of people say that, well, we're not going to find the smoking gun. Like if you go back to the Joe Smith thing where they said, hey, we're doing this in order to circumvent that, we might be surprised, and the Clippers might very well have something documented, or maybe this company has something documented where there is something in writing that states something along the lines of, hey, we need you to pay Kawhi this extra money in order to assure that he's going to sign this next contract with the Clippers. It seems, I guess what I'll say is, the proof, the evidence, I can go either way on it in terms of whether I think anything's going to be found or not found. But for me, it still comes back to the fact that he was paid $28 million to do nothing. And again, not that he didn't do anything, not that he was asked to do something and didn't do it. It was, he was never being asked to do anything. And because of that, it just feels and smells fishy, which is why I think Ballmer did the interview with Ramona Shelburne and why he tried to get out in front of it. Obviously, Mark Cuban came out to defend him. And I think Cuban made some interesting points that they talked about in the Zach Lowe show, about Cuban saying, well, yeah, you heard it from 6 or 7 anonymous employees, but who are those employees? How do they know? Did they all hear it from the same person? And eventually you have to be able to trace something back. It's going to be provable, right? It has to be traced back to a given source. And then that source has to be able to prove whatever it is that they're saying. So who knows? A bunch of it is hearsay. All I can say is, on the surface, it looks terrible. And I think you have a hard time talking your way out of it. So I don't know if what your thought process is on the whole thing, but I feel like it just doesn't look right. And because it doesn't look right, it feels like there's something nefarious there. And whether they'll
Yeah,
be able to prove that, I don't know. But I just, to me, the optics of it looks terrible.
yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said. I think this definitely undermining the salary cap. Now, I know Pablo. Hats off to Pablo Torre. He's on a roll. He's on a heater right now. He said he's trying to look into the Jalen Brunson situation too. I don't know if you saw that, like, but
Where's the tampering?
well, like that because Brunson took a bit of a pay cut too, right?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
but once again, I mean, I don't know if I would have announced that he was doing that next if he's actually, unless he thinks that's going to help him with his investigation. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I definitely think some thinking going on now. What's even funnier about that is they did all that for a guy who plays not even half the games. Like that's just like I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's another craziness. So well, I guess it remains to be seen what ends up happening with it, and if the NBA ends up doing anything because of it. So, anything
I don't
else
know.
on that?
No, I mean, I think it's been beaten to death, and you and I don't know any more than anybody else. But I think one, I feel like the Clippers definitely were somehow involved in the whole thing. Two, I guess the question becomes how big of a punishment do we think the Clippers are going to get? And I don't. There's going to be something. There's going to be some punishment. I guess if they don't find any more evidence than what they already have, then I think the punishment will be relatively light. If they find something that actually somehow ties Ballmer and the Clippers to these payments, then I think you're going to see them throw the book at the Clippers, which, as if the Clippers don't already have and haven't already had enough problems in their history. So it's definitely an interesting story, and one thing that Kawhi is not going to talk about. Let's put it that way. So
Yeah.
maybe Uncle Dennis will start doing podcasts and talk about it.
All right. So now the other topic that we want to talk about, news item, is the All Star game. What are we doing here, Mike?
Stupid,
Like,
totally
let's just
stupid.
okay. I'm ready to say it, Mike. Get rid of the All Star game. Let's just play. Let's just play. Let's just do this the Saturday night frivolity and nonsense, and just get rid of the All Star game. You can name people
Let's
You can name people to the All Star team. You can do all that pageantry, but why are we even doing this? Like, forget it. I'm done with it. I'm done with the nonsense. This is not going to change anything. For those that don't know, they're making it three 8-person teams, two U.S. domestic players, and then one international team. This is not going to do anything. It's not. I
The
mean,
thing that I hated about the game last year more than anything was the breaks in between games. And look, give me an East versus West All Star game. If it's not competitive, look, when I was a kid, I loved watching the All Star game. There was definitely moments in All Star games throughout the years that it became competitive at the end. Typically, during fourth quarters, you'd get the best five players from each conference out on the court. And if the game was close, they'd compete. I always loved sticking around after the game to see who was going to be voted MVP. It was always cool to see which guy was going to get hot, or maybe somebody was in their hometown and the rest of the players would try to get them more shots and get them the opportunity to be able to be named the MVP. But those are all things that are well in the past at this point. I don't know what it would take to bring back a competitive all-star game. What I do know is that at this point, the format doesn't really matter. What matters is, do you get some players in there that would want to play or that would care to play? And who are you or me or anybody in the media or fans to tell players what they have to do or don't have to do? Would I like them to play and have it be more competitive? Sure. Is the All-Star game a more compelling product if they do that? Sure. But if it's not it's not a huge loss. At the same time, I miss the good All-Star games of the past, but I also have come to an understanding that those games are gone, and I don't see any scenario where they're coming back, at least in terms of continuously changing the format. I just don't think that works. I think it comes down to the mentality of the players, and will that ever shift? And I think the answer to that, most likely, just in the way that the game and the money and everything is structured today, guys are sitting out regular season games in a way that they never did in the past. So to ask them to play hard competitive basketball in an all-star game is something that I just don't think is going to happen. And at this point, I don't really care about the format. I just prefer traditional East versus West. and then whatever the game becomes is whatever the game becomes. The gimmicks that they've tried over the years have nothing has really taken off. The first year they had the Elam ending, that was, I think, interesting, and they
That was
got the
the
guys to
Kobe year,
compete a
right?
little
That
bit.
was the Kobe year.
No, that was more recent. Was that the
It
year
was the
they
year he
did that?
died. It was the year he died, right? Wasn't it the year he died?
That could be. That could be.
Because they played the
Anyway,
24.
that
They played the 20. They once they
yes,
24
yes,
points.
yes. Yeah, you're right.
Come
Yep.
on,
Yes, you're
like
right.
come
You're
on.
right. Sorry,
Yeah,
you're right. You're right. You got me on that one. But that was the last time where it felt like guys actually competed. And again, the All-Star game is fun if guys compete, but if they don't, it is what it is, man. It's one night and you move on. So I will the new format make a difference? I don't really think so. I don't see that the world players where Luka and Jokic and Giannis are going to be fired up to be playing for the world as opposed to now they're playing in Eurobasket for their home country. Maybe that brings up a little bit. But again, we're talking about an exhibition versus games that have real meaning to these guys who have grown up overseas. And guys in the US, are they really going to care about beating the world in a meaningless all-star game? I'm guessing at this point the answer to that is no. So I think the format is irrelevant, and I think the only way it comes back is if for some reason you get a couple guys with a competitive streak that are in the game and they can sort of turn the tide of everybody kind of follows their lead. But I don't see that happening just because of, again, where we are in terms of the league, the money, the rest, everything that's required of players in the All-Star weekend and appearances and all that stuff. It feels like it's a ship that sailed. And if it went away, I would be sad. But at the same time, I would completely understand and I'd quickly get over the fact that we didn't have an NBA All-Star game. We could just do the dunk contest and the three-point contest and then whatever version of the skills challenge or anything else you want to throw in there.
yeah. I'm just at the point like this isn't gonna do anything to
Yeah, I
fix
agree.
the
I
state.
agree. I
All
agree.
right, all right. Gimmick time. All right. So yesterday we were talking about we didn't really have much to talk about when we were planning the episode, and we typically end our episodes with a Browns recap when the NFL season is going on. And I mean, we all know how the Browns lost. I mean, maybe if you don't, it's a typical Browns fashion. Like I saw someone at Cedar Point on Sunday. So I was at Cedar Point avoiding the Browns game actively. And I saw the guy's shirt, and this was it was the perfect brown shirt to wear on Sunday. We almost always win.
We almost win.
Yeah, almost. We almost always, yeah,
Almost win.
except almost win. Yeah, yeah. It's just perfect shirt. It's a perfect shirt. It was perfect. We had every opportunity to win. Dustin York, what did you call him? Would you, Dustin
Dustin
York
York, man. Dustin York. We need to bring
2.0?
back Dustin York.
Anyway, so the gimmick is the following: what NBA team or player, if we translated the Browns franchise to the NBA, what team or player would we translate them to? And we've already talked about the one that I had written down.
Okay, wait. But before you reveal, I just want to ask and share for our listeners to be able to understand what it means to be Brownsy. So there's two different ways to look at it, right? Brownsy could mean just a horrendous, horrendous, horrendous franchise or player. Or does it mean somebody who's good in some circumstances and then comes up short in other circumstances? To me, I feel like it's almost the first one in that they're just pathetic and always bad. And then on the other hand, I think it also fits that somebody who kind of always gets your hopes up and then pulls the rug out from underneath you. So I don't know how you approached it, but
Well,
share with me
I
what
just
you
thought
came
about
up with.
I've got two teams I thought of. One of them we
Okay.
already talked about. The Clippers is one. Okay, we had a disgrace.
It has to be. It has to be the
Well,
Clippers. It
Sacramento's the other one,
absolutely
Mike.
has to be. Yeah.
Sacramento's the other one. Okay,
Yeah.
so but like when I think about the Clippers, I think about we had a disgraced owner who was a racist and had lots of issues. Okay, which the Browns' current owner had issues with a big scandal with cheating truckers out of money, and then you've got every year after year. Oh, the Clippers. You think about all those years. They had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. Like they had all these big name players who like were supposed to amount to something and then they didn't. The Browns had similar situations. You know, I would argue that the Clippers have had more success than the Browns because of the amount of playoff, even though they haven't done good things, but they find ways to lose. You know, those game sevens that they lost and things like that. But at the same time, they would I would think we could I think we would argue that those few playoff successes are better than still what the Browns did. So that's why I guess you that's why I kind of was also leaning on Sacramento, like their front office. I guess if you use like a hybrid of Sacramento and the Clippers, it would be a perfect because the front office of Sacramento is inept and they've made so many bad picks and I don't know like they had like one good season since Peja Stojakovic left. Like I don't know. I think those two teams pretty much exemplify very Brownsy behavior. And the only Eastern Conference team that I even considered were the Wizards. Um, but I think it's more I think the Clippers are the leader in the clubhouse with Sacramento right nipping on the tails.
Well, here's the thing, right? If you look at just the history of the Browns since they came back in '99, then you have to just look at franchises that have been abjectly horrible. And probably at that point, you are maybe looking at the Wizards. If you look at the totality of the Browns, obviously you can go back to the '50s when they won NFL titles, but in the Super Bowl era, we've had one or two exciting stretches. You had the Bernie Kosar two AFC Championship games. And you could equate that right to the Sacramento Kings of Mike Bibby and Peja and Chris Webber. You could equate the Clippers, who were basically an NBA also ran from the time they moved from San Diego until probably until Chris Paul and Blake Griffin get there in what 2012, maybe 2011 when Blake Griffin gets to the Clippers. And then you have a few years. But again, tons and tons of, as you said, disappointments. And you think about losing to the Rockets in the game six comeback where James
Griffin was
Harden is
drafted in
sitting on the bench.
2009, but he was drafted in 2009, but he broke his leg. Remember,
Yeah.
he broke his
So
leg. So he was
played in
2010.
2010. Well, there's another example of just drafting a guy number one and he breaks his leg, doesn't get to play. So I think those are three pretty solid examples of Brownsy franchises. So I'm with you there. All right, players.
Oh, I mean, it's Russell Westbrook, James Harden. I mean, current guys, right? So Russell Westbrook, James Harden. Um,
It has to
if we
be.
want
I
to
mean,
go,
Harden has to be number one. I don't want to get in. I mean, you know, we could go on and 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 on about.
how about this one? How about this guy? How about this guy from the mid 2000s?
Okay,
Agent Zero, Gilbert Arenas. He would be a Browns player if he was in the NFL. He would be a Browns player.
so
A
I think
clownish behavior. He'd have
clownish behavior,
he'd have two or three great games. We'd be anointing him as the king of the Browns, and then he would do something stupid and clownish, and then ruin it. Get a speeding
and
ticket or something.
and his career is cut short by injury, as the Browns have suffered several players that have had careers cut short by injury.
Deshaun
So I think
Watson had
Gilbert,
his career
yeah,
cut short by injury.
yeah, theoretically. So I think Gilbert Arenas is a good one. So we had one other thing that happened this week that I think fits in here, and that is we had the Basketball Hall of Fame induction, and two guys went into the Hall of Fame who I think in some ways can be defined as Brownsy, and that is Carmelo Anthony and Dwight Howard. So let me take Dwight first because I don't want to talk about him for very long. But Dwight had a very good run with the Orlando Magic, then starts getting injured, starts getting a reputation as a guy who just eats candy and farts all the time and is a terrible teammate, and ends up finishing his career in China. A guy who got the Magic to the finals, beat the Cavs back with LeBron in 2009, but a guy that never really got over the hump and kind of was always looked upon as somebody as dominant as he was. I think he had 5 all NBA first teams in a row back in the mid
He won a
2010s.
championship though, Mike.
He did. He did with the Lakers in the bubble, but still, I don't know. I'm just because of the only reason why I'm putting Dwight Howard in this case is because of his election to the Hall of Fame. But then I think the really interesting guy is Carmelo Anthony. And if you look at Carmelo Anthony and you think about somebody who was kind of Brownsy, had by all accounts an outstanding and long NBA career. And while he was in
I
the
was
league,
I was
certainly
a huge
was,
Carmelo the early infancy of this podcast. I was a huge Mello fan. I go back
yeah, I
to
do,
Portland.
I do remember that. But here's the thing. So with Carmelo Anthony, he won 3 playoff series in his career, played 19 seasons, won 3 playoff series, and never really. Can you think of one meaningful playoff moment from Carmelo? Obviously, the one year they get to the Western Conference Finals with Denver, but when I think of Carmelo Anthony, I can't really think of any playoff moment. There's nothing that stands out to me. And when you look at Carmelo Anthony's stats over the course of his career, so he, where am I looking here? Where does points per game go? Where does points per game go? Why can't I find it?
22.5 points per game, Mike. He shot
Why do I,
81% from
why?
the free throw line, 36% from three, 47% from two.
Okay, and
He's
then
open.
keep those stats there because if you look at his playoff, and I'm on Basketball Reference, so I don't know why I couldn't find his per game points. But anyway, so in the playoffs, what did he average points per game in the regular season?
Oh, I switched to the playoffs already. Hold on. Regular season, 22 and a half points per game. In the playoffs, he averaged 23 points per game. He averaged a half a point more in the playoffs than he did in the regular season in his career.
But that's probably discounting all that's counting his last couple seasons where he was
Well,
significantly down in terms
he
of
played he played 11 games for Portland in the playoffs. So I
no,
would say
I don't mean his play. I don't mean his playoff games are down. I mean towards the end of his career, he became more of a role player, and so that lowered
I
his
know, but
regular season.
I'm counterpointing by saying his last 3 seasons when he played for Oklahoma City in 2017, 2018, he played for Portland in 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021 in the playoffs. He played in 16 games, which by the way, he only played in 83 games for his playoff career. So he played in 16 games in his last 3 seasons, and in those 3 seasons, he averaged 11 and a half, 15, and 12 points per game. But he still averaged in his career, he averaged 23 points per game in the playoffs. His 45 games as a Denver Nugget, he averaged 24 and a half points per game. In his 21 games in the playoffs for the New York Knicks, he averaged 28 points per game. Those are not bad. Those aren't terrible numbers. Come on now. Oh,
All
here I
right,
come.
I'll give it.
Carmelo Stands coming back. Carmelo Stands
I'll
coming.
get. All right, I'll give you that. Maybe the statistical case isn't as great, but 3 playoff series wins in 19 years for a guy who was thought of as great as Carmelo was, to me is disappointing. I think here's the thing: when I look at Carmelo's career, I honestly think a lot about him as Carmelo from the Olympics, right? Olympic Melo was always a thing, and then probably I have as many memories, honestly, of his run with Syracuse to the national championship as a freshman, which was kind of unheard of at the time for a guy who's a freshman to be able to lead his team to a national championship. I think of him and Akeem Warwick and Jerry McNamara and that Syracuse team, and just sort of how bright Carmelo's star was at that point. And then obviously during his rookie year, there was a case to be made for him to win the Rookie of the Year over LeBron. He didn't, but there was certainly a case to be made that he could have. And you look at how interconnected Carmelo kind of was to LeBron in terms of their careers, especially at the beginning. And you look at what LeBron has gone on to achieve. And again, not that Carmelo was an underachiever because he had a very, very good career, but certainly when we start talking about Brownsy, we're talking about, did you have success and win in the highest leverage moments? And Carmelo really never did that other than in the Olympics and in college. And in the NBA, he kind of fell short of that. And I think that's when, just because, again, Dwight Howard and Carmelo, just because of them being elected to the Hall of Fame and us kind of talking about this Brownsy thing, that's kind of where that came from.
Mike,
So
what's your take
I
on
think
LeBron putting on a Hall of Fame jacket already? What's your take on that? Do you have any feelings on that or not?
it's probably not something that I would do, and it's probably not something that a lot of guys would do, but I don't necessarily have a huge problem with it. Obviously, the iron, if there was ever a sure thing, LeBron being elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame is about as sure of a thing as you can get in life. So the fact that he's putting on a Hall of Fame jacket before he's actually in the Hall of Fame, I guess I don't have a really big problem with it. I don't think I would do it. I don't think there's probably other guys that wouldn't do that, but it is what it is. I don't have a big
Yeah.
problem with it. You?
Okay. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, second greatest player of all time. Come on now.
Yeah,
Come
I,
on.
I don't think there's anything to worry about. So
Yeah.
we got our Brownsy teams. We got Sacramento, the Clippers, and
How
the
bad are the Browns
Wizards.
going to lose on Sunday? That's the last. That's what I'm going to leave you. Let's leave the listeners with. They're playing in Baltimore on Sunday. How badly are the Browns going to lose on Sunday?
Well, this is a
What's
game. This is a game. This is a game they'll probably win to get the fans' hopes up, and then they'll lose like the next six in a row against teams that are all going to be below 500. Is my guess.
Well,
So
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Baltimore just lost a game against Buffalo and blew up. They gave up 15 points in the last 5 minutes of
yeah,
the
it's
game. So
it's not going to go well. But here's the thing. Like honestly, it doesn't really matter because it is what it is. You know what's funny is that so my daughter Meredith, who everybody, if you've listened to the podcast again, know that she's a big Browns fan, and so she hasn't been beaten down enough yet to the optimism hasn't been beaten out of her yet. So when the Browns lose a Brownsy game like this, she's genuinely disappointed and can't believe that it happened, and still optimistic for the next week. And then I also have a nephew who's 30, and he was going to the Browns game. He dropped off his dog at our house before the game because he was going down to the game. And I told him, like, dude, man, like, what's your optimism level for this season? And he's like, oh, it's going to be, I think we're going to be fine. I'm like, man, like, you're 30, man. Like you should have enough experience now with the Browns to know that it's just not, it's not going to happen. And then when he
Mike,
came back to
this year
pick up
was the
his
first
dog, I'm
year
like,
I've not like gone to my dad's house and watched the first Browns game because I was just like, and I was, we made plans to go to Cedar Point. My dad called me on Saturday night. Hey, I just got offered 4 tickets to the game tomorrow for free. Do you want to? But I knew you were going to Cedar Point, so I told him no. And I was like, well, I would have gone if I would have known that there was going to be free food involved and free tickets. But anyway, oh well, life goes on. I'm sure by the end of the season I'll be offered. We'll get some more tickets because they're not going to be terrible. So they're going to be.
you'll
We're
be
going to
able,
be getting
you'll be able to pick up
Mike.
some $2
Mike,
seats at some point.
Mike, you're closer to the age of the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns than I am to like.
Yeah, isn't that sad? That's crazy, man. It's just I'll tell you what, the franchise, this team, the whole thing. Let's can we move it somewhere else and just give us an expansion team? I'm all for that.
Well, they're
Just
not moved.
move.
They're not. The stadium's
Let's
not
get
going forward. So it's from. Well, I'm sure they're going to figure a way around it. That's going to happen. But, um,
just
anyways,
move it. Just move it. Just move it somewhere else. Give us a new team. Give us whatever, man. Give us a new nickname. Let's just get a new franchise in here.
Pilot
Get the
Flying
Sting.
Jays.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't even. I mean, let's get Jimmy. I don't need Jimmy Haslam to own the next team. He can he can take it to he can take it to wherever he wants to take it, and let's just give us an expansion team, and let's start anew because this franchise, they're Brownsy, man. They're very Brownsy. So
All right,
all right,
we've gone
12:41.
past the self-imposed.
Gone past our self-imposed deadline by 6 minutes. If you've checked out tonight's episode, we appreciate it. It's been a Brownsy night, a Brownsy week, and we are getting closer and closer to actual NBA action. We'll see if we find the Clippers smoking gun in the meantime between next week and now. So who knows what more surprises the NBA has in store. But nonetheless, thanks for checking out tonight's episode, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks.